So imagine for a second that I handed you a magic button, and if you press this button, you instantly get 50% faster at your job.
Okay. I mean, I'm listening.
Right, and it doesn't stop there. You press it, and suddenly you also have the computing power to help cure incredibly rare diseases or completely model the Earth's climate in literally the blink of an eye. You press it, right?
Well, hang on. It kind of depends. Are you going to tell me what actually happens to my neighborhood's electrical grid when I push it?
See, and that is the multi-trillion-dollar question right there. Because pressing that button might accidentally cause a rolling blackout in your city.
Right.
Or, drain your local water reservoir dry, or even trigger a super tense international geopolitical standoff. So, welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we are opening up the ultimate pros and cons list of our current era based on our source material.
Yeah, we're really getting into it today. We are unpacking the massive AI infrastructure boom.
Specifically looking at NVIDIA's role at the center of all of this, and the very real, very physical fallout of this whole tech revolution.
And just to, set the baseline for us today, this is not some theoretical sci-fi debate about rogue algorithms taking over the world.
Oh, definitely not.
Right. We are looking at a massive, completely unprecedented global transformation that is happening in physical space right now. I mean, it comes with these staggering scientific benefits, but it also carries an equally staggering physical cost.
Exactly. We're going to look at how we went from, basic diagnostic medical imaging to real-time surgical AI. And we'll try to figure out why a single computer chip, specifically this thing called the B200, is causing global supply chain drama and making electrical grid operators basically sweat through their shirts.
To really understand that bottleneck, though, we first have to understand the demand. Why is every major corporation on the planet currently obsessed with this tech?
Why are they betting their entire balance sheets on it? Well, because it is, for all intents and purposes, a massive speed cheat code.
Right.
I mean, for years, the tech industry was just hitting a wall.
Yeah, the computing bottleneck. You see, traditional hardware was fundamentally not designed to handle the sheer volume of data you need to train a modern neural network.
It's just too much information.
Way too much. A standard processor thinks sequentially. It does step 1, and then it does step 2, and then step 3.
Right.
But NVIDIA's hardware completely changed the game by leaning entirely into what's called parallel processing, which effectively removed that bottleneck. So computations that used to take literally years are now wrapping up in months.
Wait, okay, before we get too deep into the technical weeds here, let me make sure I'm actually visualizing this parallel processing thing correctly, because the mechanics really matter here.
Go for it.
Okay, so it's like trying to paint a massive, complex mural on the side of a huge building, right?
Sure.
Traditional computing is like hiring one absolute master artist, but they have to paint the entire wall using one tiny brush.
Which would take forever.
Exactly, it takes forever. But a graphics processing unit, or a GPU, is like handing a single pixel to a million different decent painters and having them all paint their one dot at the exact same time. The mural just instantly appears.
Okay, yeah, that is actually a much better way to look at it than most textbook definitions, honestly.
Right.
You're basically taking a colossal mathematical problem, like adjusting billions of weights in an AI model, and breaking it into microscopic pieces, and then calculating them all simultaneously.
And because we can paint the mural that fast, the real-world scientific applications are just flooding in right now. Our sources highlight some truly wild breakthroughs.
Oh, absolutely. We are seeing accelerated computing applied to hardcore physics simulations and climate modeling.
The stuff that used to take years.
Yeah, scenarios that were just impractically slow on sequential hardware are now running in real time. Or, take drug discovery.
Oh, this part was fascinating.
Right. Researchers can now simulate how millions of different chemical compounds might interact with a specific disease protein.
Just in a simulation.
Exactly. They can narrow down this massive library of chemicals to just a few promising candidates before they ever even step foot in a physical laboratory.
The medical applications actually stopped me in my tracks when I was reading the notes. I mean, AI is literally stepping into the operating room.
Yeah.
We're seeing it move from just retroactive analysis, like, a doctor looking at an X-ray, to spot a fracture after the fact, to actual real-time surgical support.
And that shift from retroactive to real-time is profound. And honestly, it all comes down to latency.
You can't have lag in surgery.
Exactly. In a surgical environment, you cannot wait 3 seconds for a computer to process an image.
No way.
If a surgeon is using a camera to navigate a really complex procedure, the AI needs to process that video feed instantly.
Wow.
So it uses those local GPU servers to overlay heat maps or highlight critical tissue boundaries, like nerves or blood vessels, right on the monitor in real time. So the surgeon knows exactly where to cut.
So it's literally an active participant in this insanely high-stakes environment. And on a, I guess, slightly lower stakes, but way more common level, it's completely rewiring everyday office work, too.
Oh, for sure.
Like the Stanford 2026 AI Index is basically the gold standard for tracking this stuff.
Right.
And they documented the measurable productivity gains from tools that people are already using at work.
And the data there reveals a lot about how these models actually function in the real world.
The numbers are just wild. They recorded a 14 to 15% gain in productivity for customer support tasks.
Which is huge.
Yeah. And for software development, it was a 26% boost. And for marketing output, a
Right.
50% gain. 50%.
But, look at the distinction between those tasks.
What do you mean?
Well, the report explicitly notes that those massive gains shrink significantly when you look at work that requires deep multi-step reasoning.
Oh, right. Which actually makes total sense when you think about it, because the data is telling us something pretty profound about how AI actually, quote unquote, thinks.
Right, it's not actually thinking.
No, it's incredibly good at pattern matching and mimicry. Like if you needed to draft a marketing email, it has seen 1 billion marketing emails in its training data.
Right.
It can instantly match that pattern, but it fundamentally struggles with complex creative reasoning. That's why it can give you a 50% boost in writing copy, but it can't, sit down and plot out a 5-year corporate strategy from scratch.
Exactly. It's an engine of execution, not an engine of origination.
That's a great way to put it.
But yet, even with that limitation, the sheer volume of execution it provides is just staggering.
Which leads us to, honestly, the wildest stat in the entire Stanford report. By early 2026, generative AI tools were estimated to deliver $172 billion in value to U.S. consumers annually.
Billion, with a B.
With a B. And mostly through tools that everyday people are using for free on their phones.
It's just a totally frictionless user experience. You type a prompt, you get a highly valuable output, and you don't even open your wallet.
Right. But, okay, if I'm getting billions in free value, and you're getting free value, someone is paying the million people painting the mural. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Which pivots us entirely to the physical reality of this boom. Because the catch to all this quote-unquote free consumer value is a staggering, borderline, incomprehensible physical infrastructure cost.
Yeah, people forget that AI does not actually live in the cloud.
No, it doesn't.
It lives in massive, incredibly loud, blistering hot buildings on the ground. And building those data centers at the scale required for modern models takes tens of billions of dollars in capital commitments
Sure.
per company.
Tens of billions.
Right.
Which perfectly explains that term we keep seeing in the sources, hyperscale cloud providers.
Right.
Like, we aren't talking about scrappy startups buying a server rack for their garage. We're talking about companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google.
The giants.
Entities that can just casually drop $50 billion in a single quarter just to build the physical warehouses that house the chips. I mean, you basically have to have a balance sheet the size of a nation state just to sit at the poker table.
Seriously. And even if you do have the billions of dollars ready to spend, you're still going to be waiting in line.
Oh yeah, the wait lists are insane.
Let's get into the supply chain drama, because it really exposes how fragile this whole system actually is. These advanced chips, specifically models like NVIDIA's B200, are back-ordered by millions of units.
Millions.
And it's not just a matter of digging more silicon out of the ground, is it?
No, not at all. The manufacturing process for advanced GPUs is incredibly concentrated. It requires something called advanced packaging.
Okay, break that down for us, because packaging makes it sound like we're just waiting on, Amazon cardboard boxes or something.
I know, it's a terrible name for it. It is far from cardboard. So fabrication is the act of actually printing the microscopic transistors onto the silicon itself.
Okay.
But advanced packaging is how you physically stack these different chips together, like a microscopic three-dimensional puzzle.
Oh, weird. Okay. Well,
Yeah, you have to connect the processing units and the memory units so closely together that the data only travels millimeters instead of centimeters.
this is the speed again.
Exactly. If they are even slightly too far apart, the latency ruins the speed of the chip.
So it requires just absurd precision.
Absurd precision. And there are very few facilities on the planet capable of doing that 3D stacking at scale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If one advanced packaging plant in East Asia has, like, a power anomaly or a brief shutdown, the supply bottleneck instantly ripples across the entire global tech industry.
So it is quite literally a massive single point of failure for a multi-trillion-dollar industry.
Yes, it is.
That is wild. But the bottleneck doesn't even stop once you get the chips. The part of the deep dive that actually made my jaw drop was about what happens when you finally plug them in.
Ah, the energy draw.
Yes, Goldman Sachs projected a 165% rise in data center power demand by 2030.
It's massive.
When I read that, it finally clicked for me. Like, wait, when I'm sitting on the couch using AI to generate some funny image for a group chat, am I actively straining the local electrical grid?
You are. You literally are. A 165% increase in demand over just a few years is not a statistical rounding error.
No.
It represents a systemic shock to electrical grids that were simply not designed to handle sudden, massive, concentrated points of power draw.
And these chips run incredibly hot when they're doing all that parallel processing, right? You can't just put a big desk fan in the room and call it a day.
No, air is actually not dense enough to carry the heat away from these new clusters fast enough.
Really?
Yeah, we are officially entering an era of liquid cooling.
Liquid cooling, like plumbing.
Basically, data centers are now pumping millions of gallons of water through these facilities. They use evaporative cooling towers to dump the heat from the chips out into the atmosphere, which requires a constant, massive intake of fresh water.
Which means they aren't just tapping the electrical grid. They're drawing from local water reservoirs.
Yes.
And the sources noted that in some regions, this massive draw has triggered real localized debates over electricity pricing and resource allocation.
Right, because if a hyperscale data center sets up shop down the road from your house, the local utility suddenly has to scramble to upgrade transmission lines, they have to secure water rights, and those costs often trickle down to regular people.
That's insane. When a technology requires the power of a small city and starts competing for local municipal resources, the conversation inevitably has to shift. Like, it ceases to be just a fun business story about software.
Exactly, and because these data centers are now viewed as strategic assets, governments are definitely waking up, which naturally brings us to the geopolitical side of the source material.
Right.
We are seeing AI infrastructure become deeply, deeply entangled with global power dynamics.
Yeah, the most prominent example in the sources is the set of U.S. export restrictions that significantly limit NVIDIA's ability to sell its most advanced AI chips to China.
And, let's look at the underlying why here, just purely from an infrastructure and strategic standpoint.
Sure.
The U.S. government didn't just decide they wanted to limit an American company's profits for fun.
Right.
No, obviously not. They looked at the technology and realized that whoever possesses the most advanced AI computing power has a definitive advantage in intelligence analysis, military logistics, and cyber capabilities.
Which makes sense. They are basically treating these GPU clusters the exact same way governments in the 20th century treated weapons-grade uranium.
That's a really good comparison. It is viewed as foundational national security infrastructure. I mean, we do not restrict the export of standard consumer smartphones or video game consoles this way.
Right, I can go buy a gaming PC right now.
Exactly. This is a highly specific policy intervention targeted squarely at compute density.
And the financial impact of that on NVIDIA is staggering. Like, their CEO Jensen Huang basically acknowledged that they have largely had to cede that specific market to domestic Chinese competitors.
Yeah, they had to step back.
The company's fiscal 2026 guidance literally assumed zero data center compute revenue from China. Zero.
And writing off one of the largest economies on the globe is a monumental shift for a company leading a technological revolution.
It's unheard of.
It really is. And, this national hoarding of compute power brings us right back to the systemic vulnerability we touched on earlier with the supply chain.
Right. It's all connected to the hyperscale concentration.
Yes, the same concentration that enables this rapid scaling, having a few massive companies buy up all the hardware to build these giant models. It creates immense systemic risk.
Because everyone is relying on the same few players.
Exactly. The entire global AI ecosystem is overwhelmingly dependent on a single company's hardware architecture and a handful of cloud providers to actually host it.
It's like building the most advanced, fastest transportation network in human history, but realizing there was only one factory on Earth that knows how to manufacture the tires.
Right.
and there are only 3 gas stations that carry the specialized fuel for it. If any one of those nodes goes down, the entire network just grinds to a halt.
And the crazy part is, we are pressing down on the accelerator of that network without fully establishing the rules of the road yet.
That is the scary part.
The Stanford AI Index report specifically flagged this widening gap between the explosive growth of AI capabilities and the corporate governance frameworks that are supposed to oversee them.
Ah, the classic Silicon Valley move fast and break things ethos,
Yep.
which is mostly fine when you are, like, launching a new social media app.
Sure, worst case, it crashes your phone.
Right. But it is significantly more concerning when the thing you might break is the stability of a regional electrical grid or the integrity of a global supply chain.
Absolutely. The sources indicate that even as deployment accelerates, most AI companies still do not publish detailed evaluations of their system's underlying infrastructure risks,
Wow.
or even comprehensive audits of how their models behave under stress. The speed of the build-out is vastly outpacing the speed of the structural oversight.
So, synthesizing all of this for the listener,
Mm-hmm.
what is the ultimate takeaway here? Because it really feels like we're looking at 2 completely contradictory stories at the exact same time.
It does feel that way.
On one hand, we are curing diseases and boosting everyday productivity by 50%. But on the other hand, we are straining the physical limits of our power grids and creating massive geopolitical friction over tiny pieces of silicon.
Well, the key to navigating this, and the sources make this pretty clear, is understanding that those are not contradictory stories.
No.
No, you have to hold both realities in your head simultaneously.
Okay, so you can't just adopt the pure hype narrative of, oh, AI is a miracle that will solve all our problems effortlessly.
Right, that's naive.
But you also can't just fall into the doom-scrolling camp and say, it's an infrastructure disaster that's draining the oceans and ruining the planet.
Exactly, because both things are empirically true at the same time.
Yep.
The scientific acceleration and the productivity gains, those are documented and real. But the staggering physical costs, the immense supply chain vulnerabilities, and the concentration of power, those are equally real.
They're just 2 faces of the exact same build-out.
Precisely. If you want to understand where this technology is heading next, you really have to completely ignore the abstract marketing hype from tech CEOs and focus strictly on the physical reality of the infrastructure.
Follow the power lines and the water pipes.
That's the only way.
Well, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to kind of chew on. Something that builds on everything we just discussed about the physical cost of our digital habits.
Oh, lay it on me. What's the mind bender?
Okay, so if these tools are making us remarkably more productive, right? But the physical infrastructure required to run them is literally pushing our energy grids to their absolute maximum capacity.
Right.
Are we going to reach a point in the near future where we have to explicitly budget our daily AI requests?
Oh, wow.
Like, will you have to think about generating a 3D image or drafting a complex report the exact same way you think about budgeting your household electricity bill during a massive summer heat wave?
That is wow.
Like, sorry, boss, I can't use the AI to outline this project today. I'm out of compute tokens for the week, and the surge pricing is just too high right now.
So basically the virtualization of physical energy scarcity.
Exactly.
That is a fascinating implication. And honestly, it's entirely plausible given the trajectory of the grid data we're seeing.
It definitely makes you look at that hypothetical magic button a whole lot differently, doesn't it?
It really does.
Well, keep questioning the tech, keep looking at the physical reality behind your screen, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.